What's up YouTube, it's Zero Option here with an announcement for a new segment which I'm going to be doing on my channel. You guys have probably wondered what the statistics and the categories which I put at the beginning of my duel videos mean. If you don't know what I mean, you can check out my High Priestess, Empress and Reaper duel videos to get a better idea of what I'm talking about. But basically those are just ways which I use to compare a deck to another deck and sort of to give a sort of overall rating to that particular deck. So my system which I uses 5 categories. The first category is clearance. Clearance is the ability to remove cards by card effect or by battle from the field, normally your opponent's side or graveyard, although it could also include other areas like the hand. So wind-ups and wind-up hunter would be a good example of that. I may refer to clearance as attack from time to time, but I probably won't. And the second category is stun. Stun is the ability to slow down your opponent by interfering with their moves. It will always involve denying your opponent their attempt to do something, like Solemn Warning, Solemn Judgment, Bondless Trap Hole, Dimensional Prison, Mirror Force, cards like that. Or it will involve removing their ability to attempt it in the first place. So cards like Secret Village of the Spellcasters, Closed Forest, and cards like that. I'll sometimes refer to stun as defense, but like with clearance I'll rarely ever do that. And another good example would be Evil Swarm Ophion and Constellar Pleiades. If your opponent tries to go for, let's say, a level 5 Synchro Monster and you have Pleiades on the field, as soon as they go for it you can bounce it back, sort of denying their attempt to do it. Whilst with Evil Swarm Ophion they can't even attempt to do it in the first place, so that's the sort of difference there. My third category is speed. Speed can be described as a number of things. I sort of think of speed as how fast a deck can reach its win condition, or how fast a deck can get to its key cards. I think there's quite a bit of a misconception when it comes to speed. I think for example that most FTKs are actually quite fast, but they're not very consistent, and Konami is quite good at hitting consistency when it comes to OTKs and FTKs, and avoiding hitting the power cards. But yeah, that's just one thing which I've noticed, is that most FTKs are actually quite fast, but the problem is normally with consistency. The fourth category is consistency, which I just mentioned before. Consistency is pretty much how often the deck could open with a playable hand or better. Searches like Reinforcement of the Army, Spellbook of Secrets help to boost consistency in their own, in the decks where they're relevant. To me, consistency is probably the most important stat or category, because if a deck has a high amount of clearance, stun, speed, it doesn't really matter if it doesn't have that consistency to hold it all together. Most decks that top on a regular basis have a high amount of consistency, like Dragon Rulers, Spellbooks. And the final category is explosiveness. Explosiveness is sort of difficult to describe, but I would sort of word it as the ability to sort of consume resources in order to go for like a really grand or sort of spectacular move. A good example would be Sam's. Six Samurais are very well known for being able to just OTK and drop everything, especially if they've got Gateway, which just keeps replenishing their resources as they're doing that. In terms of explosiveness and clearance, because well, I'll give you an overview in terms of how I sort of rate these categories, because clearance I think of as an attacking stat, which I mentioned before. Sometimes I sort of refer to it as attack. Stun is more defensive. Speed and consistency I think of more as engine stats, because speed, engine speeds and engine consistency, it's sort of to do with the engine of the deck, whilst explosiveness is sort of another attacking stat. So to really give a good example which separates explosiveness from clearance, a good example would be comparing Vikings to Six Sams. Six Sams are obviously an infamous deck which is known for being able to drop everything, which I mentioned before, but in terms of clearance, Six Sams aren't really that good, because Six Sams are also infamous for losing to cards like Gauze or Tragodia, and it's not just because it blocks for OTK, it's because these cards are quite big, and a lot of the time Sams will only be able to really deal with monsters that's somewhere in the sort of 2500 range. 2700, sometimes a 3k trade can sometimes be a bit too big for Sams to deal with, and they can kind of lose to that. Whilst Fire Kings, on the other hand, are a deck which is really good at clearing fields. It's got Fire King Avatar of Runics, Sacred Finites of Neftis, so it's got, you know, really mass removal at its disposal. But in terms of explosiveness, it's not really that explosive outside of Fire King Circle. It's not really got that many explosive plays. So I feel like that's a good example to sort of give to separate explosiveness and clearance. I sort of rushed through this, but when I make my reviews, I'll sort of explain it more and more, and it'll become more apparent in terms of what I mean. So look forward to my new segment, and I'll try to cover spellbooks, dragons, 3-axis, Fire Fist, and Murmurs first, because the ban lists sort of hit those decks quite a bit, and they're currently probably the best decks of the format. So this is Zero Option. Look forward to the segment. Signing out, and have a nice day.